In this video, we'll be dealing with the addition and subtraction of rational expressions. To add and subtract rational expressions, remember that rational expressions are fractions. They must have a common denominator before you can do anything at all. Once they have a common denominator, you simply add or subtract the numerators and reduce. The hard part is not the addition or subtraction. The hard part, if there is a hard part, is the getting of the common denominators. This is your process. When you're looking at the denominators, don't look at them in the condition they're in. Factor them down first. We'll factor it down, we'll look for what's common, we'll include that in the common denominator, then we include everything else. It gets to the point where your common denominator is going to be quick and easy to find. What really matters, though, is what happens to the numerator. You need to remember that whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So you multiply the numerator by whatever new factor you discovered by developing the common denominator. Let's take a look at how that works, and then we'll come back and take another look at the procedure list here and see how much sense that makes then. Let's say we had 2 over x squared minus 4 plus 3 over x squared plus 4x plus 4. We factor this down, we'll get x minus 2 and x plus 2. That's a difference of squares, and over here we'll have x plus 2 and x plus 2. The factors of 4 that add to be 4, and everything's going to be the same sign because it's all being added. Alright, so what we do is we look for what is already common. There's already a common x plus 2. So when we put our common denominator together over here, and that's the first thing I always do. I always give myself a nice big divisor bar, and I start with what was already common. The x plus 2 was already common. Okay? So I only have to include that once because I'm looking for a common denominator, the least common denominator. So if it's already common, then it already meets the criteria I'm looking for. So I only have to include it once, even though there's 2x plus 2's here. I only include it once in my common denominator. But then I have to include everything else. The x minus 2 and the extra x plus 2 over here have to end up in my common denominator as well. So I have x minus 2 and x plus 2 over here for all the things that were not common. Okay? That's your common denominator. You don't have to multiply it all out and see where it goes. You just have to list all the different factors involved. What we do then is we make sure that our numerator follows along appropriately. And to do that, we look at the denominator that exists already. We have an x minus 2 and an x plus 2. And we find those factors in the common denominator. Well, there's the x plus 2 and x minus 2 there. So what's missing is this x plus 2. So that's what we multiply by in our numerator. We got the 2 times that missing x plus 2. Then we want to make sure we include our sign plus 3, because we know that we're going to be getting that. And then the question is, well, what's missing from the 3's common denominator? So we look at that, and we have the x plus 2 and x plus 2. X plus 2 and x plus 2. What's missing is this x minus 2. So that's what I end up multiplying by for the numerator there, x minus 2. That's why I always put my common denominator first, because then that becomes my guide for figuring out what to do with the numerator. Whatever is not in the original denominators is what I multiply my numerators by. And then you just work it from there. You distribute, you combine like terms, and see if you can do any canceling. In this case, there's not going to be too much happening from that. We'll get 2x plus 4 plus 3x minus 6. So we'll end up with 5x minus 2 for our numerator all over that denominator. And we don't need to multiply it out. We can just leave it in its factored form just like this. Okay. If there was anything common, then we would cancel that. But if there's not, then there's not. If it had just been if we'd just been left with x minus 2 in the numerator, then we could cancel those and have 1 over x plus 2. But if that's not the case, if nothing was able to be canceled, then nothing can be canceled. We just leave it as is. Okay? So that's our process. Factor down the denominators. Right? Factor down the denominators. Look for anything that's common already. That's going to get included in your common denominator first. Then include anything that was not common over there in your common denominator to fill it up. That finishes the denominator. Then we work on the numerator. What was missing? Well, we had the x plus 2, we had the x minus 2. That's those right there. So what's missing is that x plus 2. So that's what we had to multiply by. And then we looked at the other one. We got the x plus 2 and the x plus 2. So what was missing was that x minus 2. So that's what we multiplied by. Okay? It just becomes your guide to tell you exactly what to do and when to do it. So if we take another look at our procedure here for getting our common denominators, factor the denominators. Anything that was already common gets included in the common denominator. Then everything else that was not common also gets included. The numerator, we just multiply by whatever was not in that original denominator to begin with. And then once we have our common denominator, add or subtract and reduce if possible. That's it. That's all there is to it.